Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you can see, I'm not using like my regular camera, but I wanted to come on here to kind of this is like a weird way to do like a story time, but considering everything that's presently happening, especially with people of color, which if you're one of those people who thinks that nothing's happening or you sweep these situations under the rug, you can go ahead and click off of this video right now because ain't nobody got time for that. But I thought it was important for me to, I guess, in a way, let people know that this happens to a lot of us, even to people whom you may think it could never happen to. And I just thought it was important for me to share my personal experience with police officers because, believe it or not, I've had a couple of run-ins. Start off, I am the youngest of 3 siblings, and I want to say out of the 3 of us, I'm definitely the one that had the worst run-ins with police officers. I am thankful that none of those encounters became violent, but the experience in itself just wasn't pleasant. And of course, it's always going to leave questions probably for the rest of my life because I'm just not really gonna ever understand why people do the things that they do. So I'm gonna first talk about my worst experience with a police officer, and this was, I can't remember what year this was, but this was like a while ago. And by this point, it wasn't like my first situation, but it was definitely my worst experience with a police officer. So I attended my high school friend's wedding in Maryland, and I went up on a Friday and I came home on a Sunday. And if you guys are not aware, I live in Virginia. So driving up there, I had no issues. And of course, me trying to get back home is when all this happened. Packed up the car and again in the car, and I'm putting in my home address into the GPS just so I can kind of gauge how long it's going to take me to get home, and then I guess figure out which is the best route, because we all know going to northern Virginia, DC area, whatever, the traffic is insane. And so that's what I was doing in the car. So before I could leave, I noticed that there was a police car behind me, like blocking me in the parking lot. I didn't think too much of it because I just assumed, okay, maybe he doesn't realize someone's in the car. So I was just going to give him a few minutes before I was just like, hey, excuse me, I'm trying to go home. Until I noticed him get out of the car and walk towards me. So I started to get a little confused, but I rolled the window down like this much because that's what I've always been taught. And he never asked for like my ID or registration, which I thought was weird because I kind of felt like that was always going to be the interaction with police officers when you're talking to them in your car. It sounds crazy, but so what he does is he's like, hey, what brings you here? And I'm just like, what? I'm like, oh, okay, I came for a wedding. First of all, that first question I thought was weird, but I answered all of his crazy questions because we all know that so many people like to say, well, honey, he complied. I was complying. I was answering his questions. I didn't have an attitude or anything because, you know, we like to come up with excuses for why these things happen to people of color. I tell him I was here for a wedding. He asks for the location of the wedding. I tell him where the wedding was. He asked how was the wedding. I was like, it was a good time. I'm on my way back home. I think he asked me like what part of Virginia I was from. I told him. And then finally he was like, okay, so I just wanted to get some information from you because I see you're not from here, and I just thought you were a drug dealer and a prostitute. I need to say that again. He thought I was a drug dealer and a prostitute. Mind-blowing. I never thought anyone would ever get those vibes from me. To this day, I can't even tell you, like, how do we come up with these characteristics to profile people in this way? Because I can't look at a person and be like, oh my goodness, there goes a prostitute. Oh my goodness, that's a drug dealer. Like, I can't look at someone and just assume that. And again, I don't know what about me gave him that. I just personally think he was being nosy. My way home, I think I do remember just stopping to get gas, and I didn't stop any time after that. My goal was to just get home, and that's always our goal. Anytime we have interactions with police officers, our end goal is to get home in one piece. No problems, no injuries, alive. That was the worst interaction I've ever had to date with a police officer. I still can't wrap my head around that happening. It's just unheard of. Well, not unheard of. It just didn't make any sense. Another interaction that I had with a police officer, this time it was a Black police officer. And I just let y'all know, just because someone looks like you, what's the saying? All skin folk and kinfolk? Which a lot of us know that, okay? Doesn't negate the fact that there is an issue with police officers. Not all of them, but there's still an issue that needs to be resolved. I don't know when we're going to get there, but it needs to happen quick, fast, and in a hurry. So there's one particular time I was in the area of my old church, the old church that I was attending. And I'm on my way home because I think my sister was working there at the time and I dropped her off. Now, before getting stopped by this particular police officer, I was aware that my brake lights were out, but my dad had changed them. However, if you're not aware, there's a third brake light in the back window, and my dad had not changed that, but I wasn't aware of that. I just had noticed that the regular brake lights were out, and I asked my dad to change them, and he did. So when this police officer stopped me, I was confused. But, again, I rolled down my window this much because it didn't matter to me if he was Black or white. You're still a police officer, okay? He asked for my license and my registration. And I'm always cautious about making sure that if I find myself in that predicament, like, I immediately go for my license and registration to have it ready for them when they get out of the car. I've never trusted, doing all that when they're standing next to your car. Because, again, you just never know. So I handed it to him and he goes back to his car to look up my information. Now, while he's doing that, I immediately call my dad because I was younger, of course, single. And that's one thing that our parents always taught us. If you get stopped, call us. So I call him and my dad waits on the phone with me until the police officer gets out of the car. Mind you, it took him over 20 minutes which is weird because when I tell you guys I don't have a record on anything, like no traffic violations, no tickets, like nothing. Y'all want to talk about the cleanest record ever? That's me. So I didn't understand why it was taking him so long to get out of the car, because you're literally not going to find anything under my name. So when he gets back out of the car, he approaches me. He still has my license and registration in his hand, and he says, "Do you know why I stopped you?" Of course, I'm just like, no. So I'm like, no, I have no idea. He said, "Your brake light is out." I said, "Really? My dad just changed them." And he said, "Brake light in the window is out." And I was like, oh, wow, there's a brake light there? Because again, I don't know these things, okay? I don't speak car. So my dad's already still on the phone with me. And I'm like, "Dad, it's the brake light, the one in the window." And my dad was like, "Oh, that's right. That's okay. I'll make sure I take care of it when you get home." So he hears him because, again, my dad's on speaker. I'm like, "Okay, I'll take care of that, when I get home." He was so infuriated with the fact that I was on the phone with my dad. By this time, I had lowered my window. I don't remember why, but by this time it was lower. So his reaction to me being on the phone with my dad, he threw my license and registration at me. And he was like, "You know what? The next time I find you in this neighborhood, I'm pulling you over again and you're getting a ticket. I don't want to see you here again without your brake." Like he was just going off for no reason. And I didn't understand it because I was calm, collected, and I complied. Because we like to use that word. Well, not we. People like to use that word when it comes to people who look like me or whatever. I complied. I did everything that I was supposed to do. And yet and still, I'm guessing he was on his period. I don't know. But his reaction was just unwarranted. And I was just like, wow, okay, no problem. If you've noticed from some videos, they don't like to be videoed. And I've never understood why that's such a trigger. Because if you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, then you don't mind these things. Because if anything, it covers your backside as well as mine. So me having my witness, aka my daddy, on the phone, for it to be such a problem for him, I was like, wow, sir, are you just mad because you didn't get to go eat your donut for the day? Or are you in the right profession? It just didn't make any sense. So that was my second encounter. Another encounter that I had, I know you're probably like, how are you having all these encounters? I know, right? But again, thankful none of them turned violent or anywhere near what's been going on. But my next encounter with a police officer was actually with a college cop. Now, my parents live near a college. I'm not going to say where because then y'all gonna know all my business. But they live near a college, literally a block away. And I don't remember why I rented a car this particular time, but it wasn't dark yet. It was getting there. I had just gotten the rental car. and I'm pulling into our neighborhood. I think my car then was an 86 Chevrolet Nova without the hatchback. Don't you judge me. I loved that car. I'm guessing I was about to make a trip somewhere, and that's why I rented a car. Yeah, like I said, during that time, rental cars, the lights typically turned on automatically. However, this one didn't. But again, it wasn't dark enough yet. But as soon as I pull into the neighborhood, like... For me, I was just like, what is happening? And I think at that point, I was just like tired of getting stopped for no reason. And I like panicked. He asked for my license and registration. And I'm like crying at this point. I'm down the street from my parents' house. And here I am, because it's always me amongst the three. I give him my license and registration. He goes to the car. Me spazzing out, I call my dad. And I'm like, Dad, I just got pulled over. And I don't even know why I'm down the street. I'm pretty sure that's not what I sounded like. But here we are. So my dad says, okay, I'm coming out of the house right now. I'm going to come down the street. So of course, Dad gets there. Dad gets out of the car and he's just like, what's the problem? The police officer sees my dad. And he's just like, everyone stay calm. And I was just like, I don't know why. Probably dramatic. I don't know why I'm being pulled over. And the police officer was like, well, your headlights weren't on. And I said, this is a rental car. I literally just picked it up. I have not been able to become acquainted with it. Again, like I said, it wasn't even that dark yet. By that time, my dad noticed that it was the college police car. And my dad was like, what are you doing in this neighborhood? You don't have jurisdiction here. So they just kept going back and forth. And finally, I'm guessing my dad just kept fussing to the point where the guy was just like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. Just please make sure you have your headlights on, blah, blah, blah. And he gave me my license and registration back. We went home. My dad knows a lot of people around here, okay? So what he did was he filed a complaint with the college. And I think this police officer got in trouble because, again, our neighborhood has nothing to do with that particular college. So he filed a complaint. So that was my third experience. And I'm going to wrap this up with the one good experience that I did have, because I don't want to be that person that just makes it seem as if it's all police officers, because it's not. There's a good number of people who take their job seriously and they actually care about people. We just don't get to see it as often. And unfortunately, you know, these knuckleheads kind of overshadow the good ones out there. So I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm going to ever have this narrative that they're all bad. I'm fully aware that they're all not bad. It's just too many cases where my people are dying at the hands of police officers, and it's just like nobody cares at this point. So the one good experience, literally the one that I had, was I was driving. I'm guessing I was going on an errand, and the front license plate was missing. My dad has taken it off for some reason. I don't remember, but I didn't even notice it. And then when I got pulled over, the police, he didn't ask for my license or registration. He was just like, hey, I pulled you over because your front license plate is missing. Do you know where it is? And I was just like, oh my God, no, because I didn't even notice it was gone. And I was like, no, but this is my dad's car. So I really have no idea. I'm just, running an errand. He said, okay, what I want you to do is go home, get your dad to put the license plate on it so you don't get pulled over by another cop. And he was white. And for me, I needed to have that one experience. It's sad it's only been one. But I needed to have that one good experience for me to be like, okay, so there are some good ones out there. We just don't get to see them as often, because he was really looking out for me, because it could have been one other knucklehead trying to get that quota, which, by the way, if any police officer tells you there's no such thing as a quota, they're lying. Because I had a family member work at a police department. There's a quota. They just don't want you to know about it. It's a thing. Don't let these people lie to you. But I could have, come across someone else having a bad day. Someone else who couldn't get their donut, but I didn't. He was really nice. And I always appreciate the fact that he was looking out for me, because it's always those small stops that end up deadly for whatever reason. And I just wanted to share my personal experience with cops, because people look at me and hear how I talk, and they see how I present myself, and they automatically assume that there's no way that I could possibly have those type of interactions with police officers. And we most certainly can, just because we don't portray ourselves the way that people who look like us are portrayed on television. And I'm saying that on purpose, because the media likes to make us look terrible. Just because we don't act like that, the way that our people are portrayed, doesn't mean that we don't get treated the same way. We absolutely do. It happens. It's a real thing. And I urge everyone to educate themselves on this problem, talk about it. Don't sweep it under the rug. If you're someone who just wants to understand it more, at least take the time to understand, instead of coming up with all these excuses for why we're dying. I'm really tired of people becoming hashtags it's exhausting. And people have no idea what it's like. Like, for instance, I don't have any kids right now, and I'm afraid to bring kids to this world because I don't want them to be born with a target on their back. And so many of you all don't even have to have that fear. So I just want people to keep that in mind, and just realize it happens, and it's happening more than it should. But yeah, that is all that I wanted to bring to you all today. Again, I'm sorry for the quality, but I felt the need to just speak up on it because it needs to be talked about. It's not talked about enough. I'm sorry if you didn't enjoy this video. I'm sorry if it's uncomfortable. But guess what? It's uncomfortable being Black living in the United States. Just saying. Yeah, on that note, please make sure you thumb this video up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until the next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.